All right, so I just want to take a moment and welcome everybody. I can introduce myself while people are still hopping on the call. So I'm Erin Champion. I am the director of the Milburn School, and that's in Milburn, New Jersey. I know we have people hopping on from all over the place today. And I co-developed the portfolio program that we're using right now and was also a college professor for about 10 years of my life. So, getting people into the right school and everything like that is definitely a passion of mine. So I'm really excited that everybody can be here today. I think we're going to provide some really great information to all of our students who have joined today. So I am just going to take a moment and introduce everybody. So I have Krista Nemeth from Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida, and she is the Associate Director of Admissions there. I have Jonathan Nutting, the Associate Director of Admissions for the School of Visual Arts in New York. Brett Sherman, who is the Assistant Director of Admissions at Savannah College of Art and Design. Antonio Peters, who is the Senior Assistant Director of Admissions for the Rhode Island School of Art and Design in Providence. Michael Barry, who is the Assistant Director of Admissions at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and Josh Jordan, who is the Program Manager for the Rhode Island School of Art and Design in Providence and formerly of Montclair State University in Montclair, New Jersey. So welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you all would take the time to join us today. We have a lot of questions that our attendees have submitted, so we're going to go ahead and just really get started. We have a lot of information to fit in to this 1 hour segment that we have. So I think the question that we get asked the most is, what does a great portfolio look like? So John, I'm going to throw this one to you. What should be in someone's portfolio? How many pieces? When should they start working on it? Just the basic rundown of that.
Sure. First of all, thanks again for organizing this, and good to see all of you in the, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat as well. Yeah, I mean, I think an important step when considering a visual arts college is to look at each college's requirements, because each school may have individual prompts that are required for their school or pieces that are, highly recommended. So I think that's an important thing. Once you've made your list, see what is required. At the School of Visual Arts and a number of the other schools that are here, generally the requirement is that there should be some observation in your portfolio if you're going for a fine arts based program. We have a photo and video program. SVA also has a film program. We don't require drawing and painting for those. Some other schools do. But that observational drawing from life, whether it be drawing your lunch as it's sitting in front of you, or drawing a family member or a pet while they take a nap on the couch, or if you have the opportunity to do live figure drawing, or even just drawing outside, taking those opportunities to find something that you care about and drawing it in real life, getting that down on the page, improving your eye and hand coordination. That's an important step. Beyond that, really, for us, what we want to see is the strongest work you have. And usually that's the work that you're really passionate about, those passion projects, the reason that you're, in your room on a sunny weekend, painting and drawing and working on your projects, doing those things that you really care about. The reason you're in this session right now, that's the work that we really want to see. Those ideas that are uniquely yours and that are distilled to a portfolio of usually 15 to 20 total pieces. The last thing I'll say is just that generally, whether you're applying to a photo program or a fine arts-based program, whatever, I highly recommend that you include at least one series in your portfolio. So at least 3 pieces that talk to each other on a common theme, tell a story, up to you. But having 3 pieces that are associated with each other and put the other pieces in context, that can be a great foundation, a great building block for your portfolio.
Perfect. That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for answering that. So I'm going to shift over to Brett. And I know that SCAD doesn't necessarily require a portfolio. So can you talk a little bit about how your application process is different?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks again for having me. So yeah, SCAD does things a little bit differently in the sense that we do not require the portfolio for acceptance into our school. Instead, we give out a scholarship. So we call it the Achievement Scholarship. It's just a fancy name for the Portfolio Scholarship. In that scholarship, we ask for anywhere between 10 to 20 pieces of your best works. We want to see basically whatever you're good at to this point in your life. We don't need certain kinds of work. It can be different mediums like a visual arts portfolio or a performing arts portfolio or a writing portfolio. Again, we want to see kind of whatever you're working on to this point in your life. Now, obviously, if you want to show us a variety of things, that's definitely fine with us. If you want to show us, maybe choose the medium that you feel like is your strongest work, that's definitely something that we would love to see as well. So we don't necessarily have certain requirements. We just say we do like to see 10 to 20 of your best pieces, and that's however you artistically express yourself to this point in your life. Now, again, we don't require for acceptance. We like to say once you get to SCAD, you have your 4-year education, your formal education. During that time, you're going to be creating all of these amazing projects. And then all of the employers, by the time you're done with that 4 years, can then judge you based off of your portfolio. So again, coming into SCAD, it's a little bit different. You go through the application process. It's like a 10-minute process for us. You then get assigned your admission advisor. They start to ask you for different materials such as letters of recommendation, transcripts, test scores, those types of things that we need for acceptance into our school. But again, the portfolio is not required. It's just for scholarship purposes at SCAD.
Perfect. So Krista, how does a portfolio vary for someone applying for, say, a digital arts program or a digital arts major versus a studio art program?
Well, I want to start by saying that, a portfolio isn't necessarily major specific. We don't expect you to be, say, a graphic designer before you come to Ringling. What we are looking for the portfolio is potential for a student to thrive in a program. So, digital artists, in some cases, if you're looking at something like graphic design or motion design at Ringling, we're actually very open as to what you might put in the portfolio. It might be traditional work. It might be design programs if you've had exposure to them. It could even be photography pieces. I will say somebody looking for more of a studio program, yes, we want to see, especially if it's something where there are rendering artists like animation, illustration, observational drawing, like others have mentioned in the portfolio, it's really important in your portfolio. But all in all, we want to see how you're thinking, seeing, and problem solving in whatever forms you are using well. We do want to see, I always say kind of the portfolio is basically these two things. This is what I can do, and this is who I am. So you do want to still show that work, regardless of your major, that shows your voice, your interest, your fun side, whatever that might be. And then you show, the mediums or whatever you're working in that does show the strength in your work. So I always say, I think like with us animation, it's a digital major. We're not looking for knowledge of software programs or anything like that. We're looking for basically a good, solid artist in the portfolio.
Awesome. That's great. Antonio, I know that there are some schools that have like specific requests or challenges like the RISD assignment. How should someone approach something like that?
Yeah, the RISD assignment, the side quests, I like to call it if you're an RPG person. But I know that's corny. But yeah, with the RISD assignment, specific requirements from schools, I would say exploration, experimentation, personality, really getting an insight to the students' creative problem solving skills to an open-ended assignment. Really looking for that voice, that unique thing that makes the student, who they are. Pretty much, I would encourage students to really read the guidelines to that school's particular assignment and really make sure they understand what the school is looking for. And Yeah, it's one of those projects where we're really looking for the student to just push the boundaries, like think outside the box. I think the assignment, and I don't know the school, they call it the challenge. It's our opportunity to see the student's point of view. You know, well, just it's an assignment that we get to see what they're doing, and an assignment where it gives us an insight to how they would do at our institution. And I think the other institutions would say the same thing, like it's giving us an insight to how you would tackle an assignment at our school and better help us to evaluate the student. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you give us an example of what one of the past ones was like? And if it had changed at all from what you were seeing because of us all being in lockdown and quarantine and everything like that?
Yeah, the risk. So the assignments we've seen with students being within the world of COVID, we've seen a lot more students approach the assignment digitally because that's all they had access to. And so students got really creative because they were limited on what they had access to in terms of materials. And that really helped push the students' creative problem solving skills and being innovative. And, it's unfortunately that COVID, kept people indoors, but it really pushed students to use materials around the house. I mean, we've seen students using bed sheets. We've seen students using blueberries, coffee, tomatoes, like when you use lemon and then you like a rusted nail. I mean, people were doing all kinds, and then you put it on an iron and it creates like that antique feel. But yeah, students got really creative. One of the really cool things I also noticed, students really pushing the boundaries of trying to get to understand a different type of material or art form that they've never used before. And so that really pushed them to take more risks. That was the one thing that I also wanted to mention. Students taking risks. We really want to see students taking risks. And just pushing the boundaries. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are a lot of questions right now too about what the application process is like. And, especially with COVID and all of that, I know some things have changed. So Michael, I wanted to ask you, other than the portfolio, what else should our students expect from the application process? Things like, how important are the SAT scores, GPAs, extracurriculars, all of that kind of stuff.
For us right now, moving forward, fall 2021, fall 2022, we are test optional. I think COVID presented a lot of test challenges, both domestically and abroad, unfortunately, that we're just trying to navigate. Unfortunately, College Board, ACT, they just have not been reliable. And it's not really fair to hold a student responsible to that. So, as far as test scores go, students are welcome to submit them if they, feel that they are insightful and, maybe shine a light on their academics and things like that, but they're certainly not required for us. And, I'm hesitant to speak. I know some of our other brother and sister art and design schools are similar in that case, and I know some are not. So, I would not speak for any of them. In terms of, having a comprehensive application, I think it's a great idea to include a resume. Oftentimes it's not required, but I do think it's a great way to offer comprehensive insight into what it is you do and what you're passionate about outside of the realm of art and design. Going to art and design school in many cases is an experience. There's social experiences, there's networking opportunities, there's public relation opportunities. And there's also opportunities to forge community and give back to the community and society. And I think that's a very important thing when looking at a complete student, and also for students to sort of understand what is going to be available to them when they go to college in terms of community and sort of thinking in a more sort of global humanitarian platform. The other thing that I would stress is that most colleges, most art schools that you're going to apply to, certainly, again, I'm not speaking for all of them, you're going to have an essay question or a prompt of some sort. And, responding to that is going to give us, really, really great insight into who you are and how you think about things and how you communicate verbally. And it's just sort of an accent. I like to refer to it as an accent to the portfolio. It just sort of delves deeper into what you're communicating, what types of risks are you taking, how do you think about addressing a question or a prompt, how literally or non-literally are you taking that and approaching that? It's a great way to show us who you are and how you think about things. In terms of letters of recommendation and things like that, I never think those things can hurt. I do caution students to have a letter of recommendation from somebody who can speak about them the most eloquently and also the most intimately. Like if you have a teacher that you've had 1 year and they're cool and you think they might be able to write you a letter of recommendation, then that's great. But if you have somebody that you've worked with for like 3 or 4 years and has like really mentored you and you know them really well, and they're also a great writer, that might be a better option. Even if they're not an art teacher, even if they're not an art-centric art teacher, that's something you might want to think about as well, as somebody who can really speak about you and your abilities in a very comprehensive and understanding way. So yeah, those are the things that I would say. And again, I would underline, we do not require test scores and we do not require letters of recommendation. However, I encourage all students to have at least one letter of recommendation. I think there's a definite value and insight that can be offered from a letter of recommendation.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everybody on here is test optional for at least the next year or two. I think every school mentioned that when I was speaking to them. So it does seem to be something that we're seeing, pretty much across the board. Antonio, I wanted to come back to you and ask about, the importance of our students attending portfolio reviews and like scheduling college visits. How important do you think that is in making the selection and also having like just that portfolio that's really impressive when it's time to submit it?
I'm sure. I think portfolio reviews are very important and beneficial. Students learn a lot from getting feedback from many different perspectives. And if the students have the opportunities to attend the National Portfolio Day or a school's hosting their own portfolio day. There's many opportunities. So Portfolio Day, there's also ACAD, acad.slideroom.com, where students can receive a portfolio review. For RISD, we attend Portfolio Day. We also host our own Portfolio Day, and also we participate in ACAD reviews. Getting that feedback, getting inside perspective on what that school is looking for. So every school is looking for something different, and being aware of that is very important. So if you're applying to 5 different schools or 6 different schools, everyone is looking for something different. We're all unique in our own way, and we're trying to find through that conversation with the student, is there a way to help mold that particular portfolio to that school's requirements or what they're looking for in their application. And so it's, I always encourage students to get as much feedback as possible. Also, one of a piece of advice, make sure you have a sketchbook writing down all the feedback, because we all know at the end of the review, they're like, do you remember what I just said? And they're just like, a little bit of it. It's just like, okay. Or, ask the reviewer to, if it's okay to be recorded using a cell phone. I'm always okay with just whatever you need to do to remember. But yeah, in terms of college visits, I know for our school, we are still discouraging people from visiting our campus. We are hosting virtual campus tours and also information sessions, but we will start up sometime in July in terms of inviting people back to campus. But it is a an important time for high school students to get a feel of what the school is like, walking around, the exterior buildings, the interior buildings, and really getting a feel for the energy, and really thinking about like, wow, I can see myself here in this school. I remember visiting Micah, I remember visiting Parsons, and just noticing like how different, like each city is, and how the school is sorted out within its location. Like, is it a city? Is it an urban campus? Is it, a little bit more like on the outskirts of the city, but more country, more residential? But yeah, walking around campus, seeing people work, it really gives you an insight to like, is this the right place for me? Yeah, but definitely attend. I know there was a portfolio day today. So I hope many of you attended that portfolio day. But yeah, there's always opportunities to get a portfolio view. And if you are a rising junior, rising senior, rising senior, rising junior, the earlier you can get feedback on your portfolio, the better. By the time you're a senior, you really have to have a solid, well-developed portfolio, I think. Yeah.
I still remember all of my college visits too, and you're right. It's kind of like, the minute you step foot onto a campus, whether it's right for you or not right for you. So it is important to be able to see them in person, and I hope that opens back up over the summer for a lot of our students who are making the choice this next year. So that brings me to my next question, which we hear a lot. How do you choose the right school? It seems like such a big life choice, and one that I know our students don't take lightly. So I wanted to go back to John and say, what are the differences really between a BFA program and a BA program? So, a fine arts school and versus more of a liberal arts school. And how do our students best understand which one would be right for them?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I hope that as you do narrow down your college list, that you're able to get there. And also, once in-person tours kind of resume at a lot of our favorite schools, that as you say, being in person, being there, feeling the vibe, that goes a long way. Can you picture yourself as part of a community? I think that's really a big question. The other is just what percentage you want to be academic versus studio. A Bachelor of Fine Arts is 2/3 to 3/4 studio coursework, and the rest is academics, art history and the like. A Bachelor of Fine Arts is closer to a Bachelor of Arts is closer to 50-50. I'd say if being in the studio is really a priority for you, if you're a maker and you really want to spend your time engaged in improving your craft, that I'd highly recommend a Bachelor of Fine Arts. Those you're going to find a lot more often in standalone institutions, as opposed to an arts program inside a greater university. That's not the case at all schools. So do your homework. I think an important question is, do you want to be part of a very large school that has a language program, that has minors in something that only a major university can offer? If that is the case, then maybe you consider spending time in a school where you can investigate those academic endeavors as well as the studio. In that case, a Bachelor of Arts might be a better fit. So as far as the distribution of studio time, that's the big difference between BA and BFA. Does that answer your question? Is there anything else I can help you with there?
Yeah, no, that absolutely answers it. I feel like it's often difficult for students as they're making these decisions to really think about what they want the rest of their life to look like. We ask that of them very young. So it's good to hear what the differences are and what different paths that might lead to for them as well.
Yeah, that's a very important note. I mean, this idea that you need to know exactly what you want to do with the rest of your life, as a high school junior, even as you're, building this list of schools you're going to apply to. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you say, okay, I want to animate. I want to, be on a gallery wall. That's all I care about. And in other cases, that you're creative, that you are a thinker, and you want to investigate. So you find an institution where you'll be able to do that. And maybe in your first year, like SVA, for example, and most schools have a foundation program for a number of their majors. Our design students, our fine art students, our illustration and our cartooning students all share that same first year. So if you're like, I like to draw, I'm creative, you could come spend that time in a foundation program, and then in your second year say, okay, I've made a stab at it, now I really want to go this direction. Whereas if you're an interior designer, you want that, we have a 4-year interior design program for you.
Thank you. That's very, very helpful. So I know some schools, Pratt had mentioned that you apply directly to the program that you intend to study in. And I know that SCAD does something totally different. So Brett, I'm going to ask you, what is your best advice for finding the right program, finding the right major, if you're unsure, or kind of what the process is, even for SCAD?
Yeah, a lot of times that's like the biggest question, right? Like what do you do for the rest of your life? Like choosing your major. I mean, that's a big thing, right? So with SCAD, our most popular major is actually undecided, because when you're accepted to SCAD, you're accepted to all of our majors. So a lot of our students kind of choose the undecided route, where you're like, I could do 40 different majors. That's kind of where we like students, but we also have a ton of students that come in knowing exactly what they want to do. So what's nice about SCAD, again, you're accepted to all the majors. So as long as we have a major for you, then you'll definitely be in a good place. But again, we give you the foundation and gen ed year to kind of figure things out a little bit more. So you get to come to SCAD. We have major and minor fairs. You're meeting students from all around the world doing all different types of things. You're meeting professors. You take a first year experience class where you're meeting different professors in that as well. So you're really learning a lot about a lot of those majors during that first and second year, and then you get to actually decide what major you want to be a part of. If there are students that know exactly what you want to do, after 10 weeks at SCAD, which is after your first quarter, you can declare your major. So it's a little bit different at SCAD, but again, like we give the students the opportunity to look into things a little bit deeper. And there are some great ways to do that. Like, I mean, on our website, I'm sure other schools' websites, we have a whole breakdown of every single class that you'll take at SCAD per major. And you can actually click on each of the classes and learn, like there's a little paragraph about a description about each of the majors, each of the classes as well. That's a great thing to do. But again, we really keep it open-ended, because a lot of times you're not being taught user experience design or animation or business of beauty and fragrance, or all these majors, immersive reality, where you're learning augmented and virtual reality. It's a whole major that we have. A lot of times you're not learning that stuff in high school, right? So how would you know that you want to maybe pursue that and do that for the rest of your life? That's why we kind of give you that time once you get to SCAD, step foot on campus and start learning some things to kind of decide what exactly you want to do and what you want to pursue.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah.
And Michael, I know it's a little bit different for Pratt. So do you want to speak just to the differences in that?
Sure. I can speak a little bit about that. At Pratt, we do have an undecided option. We're not trying to pigeonhole anyone or lock anyone into anything specific. As long as you're applying, we have 4 different schools at Pratt. So we have the School of Architecture, the School of Liberal Arts, the School of Art, and the School of Design. The School of the School of Art and the School of Design, those are very similar. They're all foundation based. You can switch your major to any one of those things very easily, as long as there's space available. We do require slightly different portfolios and slightly different academic criteria. For the School of Architecture, we look at your math grades a little bit more heavily than we would for, say, animation or illustration or something like that. Certainly, and with the School of Liberal Arts, those require writing portfolios. So it's still a portfolio, but it is a writing portfolio. And, assuming that your writing portfolio was accepted by that particular program and department, then you would easily be able to transfer your major. We try to say yes as often as possible, but it would be remiss of me to say that that's always possible, because that's not the case. But for the most part, students coming in, if you're coming in as an interior design major because that's what you think you want to do, and then you fall in love, like you go through foundation and you fall in love with sculpture, or you find out maybe you're more interested in product design or fine art sculpture, that's a switch that can certainly be easily managed and dealt with. We don't require any like specific difference in the portfolio or the application process if you're applying to the schools of art and design. So that can be a relatively seamless transition, but it is a little bit different because you're not necessarily guaranteed the full gambit of what we offer at the institution.
That's great. And you also answered a question that was coming in live about the difference between a portfolio for someone who is undecided. So there really isn't that much of a difference because you're presenting your best self no matter
That's
what
right.
you're applying for.
That's right. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. And so I want to go to Josh. Josh, can you tell us a little bit about what students can really expect from a first year foundation program? What's that going to be like? How can they prepare for that now?
Well, I don't know if anybody can prepare for it right ahead of time, because when you enter into a program, it becomes a unique experience from anything else that you've had before. I think, unless you've come from like a concentrated like performing arts school where you've taken so many art courses in such volume or succession. So I guess I would start off by saying, maybe I can double back after I say my spiel. I mean, like, I would think, since we all represent different schools and they're different models of schools, I tried to think of what was the most applicable to all the different models. And the things I came up with, what students could expect is immersion, exploration, and discovery. And while those may seem like soft and amorphous concepts, right? I do think that those are manifest in very practical things. First of all, even if people have come from a background of extensive art experience, or they've gone through a high school experience of some convention, this is where the basics of applied skills in material skills in a given subject that they may be familiar with are now put in full focus, and they're all being sort of you're experiencing them in concentration and in succession with one another. You'll be taking classes that you might have taken throughout 4 years of a high school experience, but it's not just on Thursdays. It's like every day of the week. And oftentimes you're with the same people in different classes. And that's a unique situation. Broadly speaking, if you want to know sort of a little bit more about laundry list, the kinds of things that you will explore, the basic material skills as they apply to the principles and elements of art. There's like surface, space, light, and time, those kinds of things. And hopefully, and to see like how, if the curriculum's set up a certain way, how all of those different elements intersect and how they relate. So if you're in a surface class and you're talking about shapes, hopefully you're also in another class talking about, in like sculpture or 3D, talking about form. And it's the same principles, like how does asymmetry or balance figure out in a graphic surface class, but there's a relationship to it, but it's different when you apply it to sculpture, right? But hopefully they're in sync with one another. So you see the cause and effect of the same ideas, but how they manifest themselves in the particular language or the materiality, right, of a given course. That there's an ongoing conversation between all of the courses that emerge through a series of experiences. And hopefully, in addition to that, there's also a component built in that would tie everything together from a digital standpoint, right? So that you have somewhere between an acoustic experience with these things, but also like, a fundamental overview of things like the Adobe suite, so that there's a digital literacy involved. Now, personally, another preference that I hope there's also a component where there's hopefully there's a series of like experiences and strategies in hopefully all the classes, or maybe in one component in the program where ideas start to get discussed, where your conceptual ground starts to grow as well as your technical facility, so that you start to learn about yourself because when you're entering in a foundational year, you're at such a fascinating sort of crossroads in your life, right? You're learning how to do things like Photoshop and 1-point perspective and laundry, right? So what we're trying to figure out is like how these experiences can all link up with one another. And so that you can as you start to find out more about who you are, right? Who you are and how that helps identify how you do things, why you do things, what are your ideas, how do you make your choices, so that the more you learn about yourself, you still learn about why you do things, to form a criteria, that's hopefully the real certificate, or the graduation is like knowing why you do things and how you do things for your reasons. That's what's going to help you in the field of your choice. I guess the only other thing I would say is through all of these intersectional experiences, right? Hopefully what you get is a broad idea of the range of possibilities about what you can do, because it's not a given that you're going to know what your major is before you get there. I think that's kind of a problem too. This is your chance to explore, right? And then discover what path you want to go on. So
that's a very good point. Thank you very much.
Sure.
This could be for any of you. We have a few people who've asked, how recent should the work be in a portfolio? So I'm going to toss that one out there for whoever wants to join in.
I'll jump in. Honestly, I think the work should be pretty recent. And actually, that's sometimes another misconception. I see sometimes people who want to show like a timeline almost of their work or their progression. But I always say, like with a portfolio, like Ringling, we say about 10 to 15 images, depending on your major, of course. But you want to wow your viewers. And also, I think showing more recent work also shows work ethic. You know, when I talk to somebody and they talk about almost painfully producing new pieces, that's not a good sign. Like you know, art should be almost like a healthy addiction. So you should be constantly producing work. Now you might have like a star piece or something from last year that you really want to put in there. But in my thoughts, and when we view work, I mean, I think we want to see typically, you know, more recent pieces, not stuff from 3 years ago.
Perfect. And Antonio, I had one question that popped up for you. So as far as these challenges are concerned, what if you take a lot of risks in the RISD assignment and it doesn't result in a positive outcome? Does that affect anything negatively, or is that what you're kind of looking to see? Speak a little bit to that.
Sure, that's what we're looking to see. You know, we come across a lot of students who will tackle the RISD assignment. Some, you know, are very strong, some are like in the middle, and some are kind of weak. But we put a lot of the emphasis on a person's application on the portfolio. So the RISD assignment will not make or break a student's admissions decision. But we, you know, again, if the student succeeds at the RISD assignment, that's okay. If they fail, that's okay too. If they learn something from it, push themselves, it's okay. Yeah. And that's what my 2 cents. Yeah.
I like that answer. So I want to talk a little bit more about career opportunities. I know that especially the parents that are on the call, and definitely some of the students are going to really want to know about what happens after, you know, they've made this decision and all of that. So Michael, I'm going to go to you. What careers are really in demand for artists today that you're seeing?
Oh my goodness. You know, it's funny, we were talking earlier about COVID and the challenges that even that is presented. And, you know, because of COVID, I feel like there's even more opportunities maybe than there were like 2 years ago, you know, just because of COVID, not to mention the fact that a lot of these fields are just growing exponentially. You know, things like user experience and interactive, you know, gaming, and just there's more platforms for publishing, you know, and that, you know, when you use the term publishing, I mean, I think that oftentimes has a connotation to commercial arts, but it's not just limited to commercial arts. You know, archiving and making things accessible in digital platforms, whether it be fine art or commercial art, digital art, new media, you know, whether it's physical or virtual installations and combinations thereof. I think you're seeing a lot of that. There's now combinations because of COVID and distancing. I think you've seen this whole new platform really sort of jump off, where there's actually a physical component that exists somewhere in space. And then there's also a digital component, and those things are connected and work together. So I think, you know, I think it's hard when you're in high school to sort of think about how broad the possibilities are, because usually, you know, most common exposure, right, would be drawing. Everybody's probably drawn a picture at some point in their career in academia. But you build on that, and then you have access to painting, and then maybe you've done some printmaking, and maybe you've done some ceramics, and maybe you've done some sculpture. But all of those things, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of professional possibilities linked to all those applications. You know, I would use myself as an example. I went to Pratt for illustration. I worked as an illustrator. I started working as an illustrator as a junior. I worked in illustration for about 10 years. Then I ended up in fashion design and costume work. Then I ended up in jewelry and accessory design. And you never know where these skills are going to take you. But I think that's one of the great experiences of art school is you choose a concentration to develop skills and become self-aware as a maker. But then those skills that you have, you can take those with you. And sometimes it's just a matter of like, okay, I need to learn how to use this program so that I can apply all this knowledge that I have. Or I need to learn how to use these particular tools so that I can apply all this knowledge that I have. So I would say that anyone who's concerned about, you know, getting a job as a creative person or a maker, designer, you really just need to look at the world and how you navigate it, because everything that you're touching, everything that you're interfacing with, everything that you're experiencing is directly connected to an artist, a designer, and a maker. So the possibilities are far more vast than I think even I'm expressing to you right now. It's just constantly growing, and being able to be around other artists and seeing their problem solving and their outlets in the way that they manifest their work, and being in a sort of comprehensive environment like an art school, I think that's just the best way to turn you on to those possibilities. You know, all these schools are where, you know, they're present today. You know, we're some of the top art schools in the world. And, you know, we have very high job placement rates. We have very high success rates of getting students jobs in their field. And you know, I feel like I would be remiss in saying, certainly at Pratt, and I'm sure the numbers are similar at many of these other schools, you know, 25% of our students are already working before they graduate. So they're already animating, they're already in the film industry, they're already illustrating, they're already working in some type of fashion capacity, they're already a tattoo artist, they're already a whatever. And, you know, they're just building upon that and honing those skills and doing it also within the safety net of a system that is fully put in place to support them. That's what art school is. It's a system of support. And it's a system of support to help you accomplish your personal creative goals, but also to accomplish your professional goals. And, you know, I just like, anytime you see something that you think is cool, figure out what artist and designer is behind it. Whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's a garment, whether it's a snowboard or a new car or a motorcycle or a laptop or whatever. And even, you know, something as straightforward as like a clock radio, right? Somebody designed the inside of it, somebody designed the outside of it, somebody designed the tech that goes into it, somebody designed the instruction manual, somebody designed the packaging. Somebody designed how that clock got to you on the shelf of the store that it was in. So, you know, think about these things as comprehensive as and take yourself on that journey of creation and experience, and participate in that dialogue. Even if you're just talking to yourself, take notes on these things. How does the stuff that I like and the stuff that I'm drawn to visually, how does it come into existence? And then how do I end up interacting with it? and go down that rabbit hole, and you'll be amazed at where it takes you.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And such a good point. I think there's not an artist out there who doesn't try to recreate the atmosphere that you get in college. It's unlike anything else. There are so many like-minded people there, and it's just such a great community. And I think as an artist, most of us try to make that happen for the rest of our lives and everything else that we're doing too. So I know that's something that I've always thought about. How do you get that community? So it's great to have, your college, or even a place like One River, anything that can give you that sense of community and belonging and other minds to bounce your ideas off of. It's a great thing to have. I want to go back to Krista. What are some of the most marketable skills and traits that an artist can have today?
Well, the thing is, it's going to be really different sometimes depending on where you might be going into. And of course, we offer several different majors, which that can mean different things, but it's ultimately obviously taking the knowledge, the originality in your work, your skill set, your versatility as an artist, are different things that basically it is what you're acquiring and excelling in over those 4 years. But the key is you have to take it and know how to blend it into things like the basic career competencies. And there's usually 8 of them. And that's critical thinking, communication, teamwork, technology, leadership, professional development, career and self-development, equality and inclusion. These are things that employers look for. So at Ringling, it's connecting what you've learned, what your strengths are, and knowing how to make that visual through your resumes, your cover letters, things like that. That shows a really strong, candidate out there in the field. And, we also really help students develop those skills, through our career services. And there's different ways through your coursework itself, through things like opportunities and internships, different real work experiences that you might take part on. Community service, a lot of collaborative work that you might be doing as students, campus involvement, and again, just different forms, maybe even like a part-time job or something like that. But like I said, we really feel the key is connecting those things that you're taking as an artist, those great attributes that employers are looking for, and knowing how to bounce them, that it's very apparent in how you're reaching out and networking and trying to find these different opportunities out there.
Yeah, that's great. That's such helpful information for them all. And while I have you here, one of the other things that I've seen come through in the Q&A is asking about the best way to present digital artwork. And I think they're asking about like in their portfolio. So the portfolios are almost all digital for everybody. Is that true for everyone here? Yeah. So if you just want to talk about the best way to present that, I think it would be similar for, kind of the entirety of the portfolio.
Well, at Ringling, we use SlideRoom, and most schools I think are now. And basically it's almost like it's really user friendly. It's like a photo bucket where you can upload images, moving work, even writing samples. So it just gives students, obviously we always say take care in how you present your work, meaning we don't want to see your laundry in the background or something like that. It's not that you have to go out and hire a professional photographer. And there's actually great resources, and showing your work. Obviously, if it's digital work and you're just transferring files, but if you're actually shooting traditional work, there's some good tips you can even find online on how to even take great pictures with your phone, that you could upload for your portfolios. But I think you should, you want to present your work with some integrity. You want it to show as well as it possibly can when you're uploading those portfolios. Also showing work digitally, again, like I know other colleges were talking about portfolio reviews and things like that. That ACAD portfolio review is also through SlideRoom. So if you do it, when you're a sophomore, junior, you're going to be pretty familiar probably with using SlideRoom when you're applying to most colleges. And then again, when you have informal portfolio reviews or something, some students will just send a Google file or something like that. So there's some different ways, but every college is different, I think, in how they're requiring work for the portfolio requirement. So it's important to check with each institution just to make sure you're going through the right steps.
Yeah, I know in our portfolio programs that we have at One River, we really stress, making sure that it's not a trapezoid and you don't have the carpet in the background.
Yeah.
It's lit properly and you didn't get like a blue tinge from something else on it. So, however you can best represent, if it's a physical work of art, however you can photograph it to best represent what it actually looks like. And then for digital, I feel like that often is a little bit easier for also a digital portfolio because you can upload your files and they should be ready to go after you've completed them. Does anybody have anything significantly different from that to add?
Yeah, I would also say, while we don't have a lot of limitations, if I were going to set any type of limitations on what somebody should present or how they should present their portfolio, I would say, don't hurt yourself, don't hurt anybody else, don't break any laws. But in terms of, the format in which you present your portfolio, you can be as creative with that as you want. That's not to say that somebody who's applying for painting couldn't submit a video, or somebody who's applying for video couldn't submit an animation or whatever. It's however you think, like, use that as you will. It's up to you to decide how you're going to present your work to us. We will inevitably see it in a digital format, but the methodology in which you use to deliver it to us through SlideRoom is totally up to you. And, you should take full ownership over that.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. I'm going to pull one other
So could I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other thing I would suggest, and also like advise against, when putting in a portfolio, fan art. Avoid fan art as much as possible. If it doesn't belong to you, if it's Naruto, Bleach, Steven Universe, Captain America, Marvel Comics, you name it, if it belongs to someone else, don't include it in your portfolio. We emphasize, and many other institutions emphasize, drawing from observation, but also including original artwork and ideas. And we really want to see what you have to bring to the table. Like, show us your imagination. Don't show us someone else's creations. What are you creating and how that's going to impact the studio environments at our institution?
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about that, Antonio, as far as like, can they include a manga style drawing? And I would always say yes, as long as it's your own character. Is that what you would agree with? Yeah. So the type of drawing is fine. It's just got to be your own idea that you're portraying within that, right? One other question. I'm actually going to go to John for this one. How do the academics differ for things such as math and science at an art school as opposed to, a generalized university? Is there any difference in how those subjects are treated?
It varies from institution to institution, to be honest with you. One of the important pieces of the puzzle, I think personally, is making sure that you do have strong academics no matter where you're going to school. As it's an important piece of the puzzle to be a well-educated person as in the humanities and know what came before you and what's next. I think that's an important thing. So how do you wrap that into a visual arts study? It varies greatly. For SVA, we like to connect the dots. We don't want a student sitting in a science class saying, ugh, how does this relate to the print I'm working on? And so we have things like color and vision as one of our science courses, in which we are learning about how that counts as your science requirement to receive that Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. But students are learning about how their eyes perceive color, how, there's another class called the chemistry of color, in which you're actually creating new colors and talking about the chemistry of and history of different kinds of blue. as far as the history course goes, yeah, absolutely. You can go and take a traditional history of Western civilization. That's an important thing to know about. You can also take the history of horror. So, one of the really great things about having the studio and the academic dovetail is that you get some really creative coursework in which you're able to really say, okay, I can take this idea back with me, as opposed to saying, okay, I read this thing, now I'm going to go over here and do something that's completely detached from it. So I think that's an important piece.
Yeah, that's great. I have one other question, and I'm hoping that you can answer it too. How should a student with learning disabilities or learning differences approach the application process? And
Yeah.
even like IEPs once they're accepted?
It's absolutely up to a student to share that information with us. It's not a requirement. If a student has an IEP and they feel that in high school, they feel that they have the tools that they need to move on from that, that's up to them. But if they do wish to continue on in those kind of elements of support, we're here for it. There's at schools, there's a variety of different tools that one can use at SVA, and I know that this is at a number of other institutions. For those students that have trouble keeping track of notes, you can actually connect through an academic resource center with another person in your class to share notes with. That's a pretty common piece or kind of practice. For us, if a student is interested in submitting an IEP, they can do so via the health office and communicate very closely with those academic support staff in the academic resource center. The learning continues, and it's a process, and I think that to engage that and to say, okay, well, what can we do to help empower those students to learn? That's such a vital piece. Just because you're stepping into a studio doesn't mean that you suddenly learn differently. Now, that said, the value of some of these courses, like a humanities course that is in a visual arts school, sometimes a history class, for example, might let you submit a short comic instead of submitting a 10-page term paper. So if you're a visual learner, if you're a visual communicator, you might be able to spin it and talk to your professor and make that work. Yeah,
I think those are great points. Also, in my teaching experience at the university level, there were a lot of students who required extra services, and I think every campus is more than happy to provide anything that they can as a resource for a student. And a really good point to you is talk to your professor as well. All of your professors are just human beings and they want to see you succeed. So always talk to them as well.
Yeah, being in contact with your instructors is such an important piece. People don't, people think about, okay, I'm going to school with other students. Well, you're also in a room with a professor. I think that's an important thing, that they're there for a reason. All of the professionals, all the teachers at SVA are professionals in the field they teach. So not only do they understand kind of what that next step is for you, but they're also, they've been working in the industry. They're well-adjusted people that want to see you succeed. And so, I think that's an important distinction, is that, yeah, your fellow students are the people that are going to rise up through the ranks with you, but the professionals that are in the classroom teaching and being there with you, they're also part of that conversation and should be part of your support network.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know it's 5 o'clock. We went a little bit over, but there were so many great questions. I really wanted to fit in as many as possible. And also I neglected to mention anything about One River School. So I just want to take a moment for those people who are new to us today to speak a little bit about One River School. We were founded in 2012, and we have, 13, 14 locations across the United States right now. So we actually have people joining us from all of those different locations. And we really have developed like a unique method for teaching art and digital design classes to people of all ages and all levels. We start at 3 years old and go all the way up on through adult, which is absolutely great to see all of the creatives in the space. And our students create some really compelling outcomes. So we're here trying to transform our education and provide these experiences that really change the lives of the communities that we serve. I feel like all of us, I know there are a few other directors on the call, it makes such a difference, especially now given the circumstances that we're in, to be able to see our students come in person or remotely and create something amazing. And to that end, you know, anybody needing help with their portfolio, we have portfolio reviews at our school. We have advanced teen summer classes. As I said, we have a portfolio program that you can be in for a longer period of time and really learn how to create a practice as an artist that will result in a great portfolio, and some summer courses that are geared up to generate pieces that might be still in need of finding a home in your portfolio before you submit. So I just really want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules. And for everybody that's on the call, we are going to send you, you know, a recording of this and some resources for each of the schools that are present as well. They were very, very generous, not only of their time, but also of their resources and even offering, you know, future chances to visit and collaborate for our students. So thank you all very much. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be here. It was very informative. So let's give them a round of applause. I know we can't hear anything.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you all. Bye.
You
Bye,
guys.
everybody. Have a nice weekend.
You
You as
too.
well. Stay safe.